and welcome to the podcast where three friends discuss environmental policies from around the planet. Welcome back to another Planet Policy Pals Extra Policy episode. So we are currently in the first week of our break, but we are releasing these mini episodes every week until the end of May. I'm Ala, and I'm joined today by Ajwa. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Hello, hello. So for this Extra Policy mini-sode, we are answering an audience question. The question is, a lot of companies like American Airlines are committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It's a good goal, but why is it so far away? Ajwa, why do you think it's so far away?
Well, one of the reasons, of course, why it's so far away is because just the goal of net zero, it's a very steep goal, let's be real. It's not like you can achieve this tomorrow. I think, so as I was writing the notes for this episode, right, I came across a meme that Greta Thunberg, by the way, shared on her Instagram. And it was like, it was from that Friends part where Phoebe's trying to teach Joey French or something. and she's like, we need to cut down emissions. And he's saying everything. And it's like, we need to start cutting down emissions right now. And it's like, we'll get it done by 2050. That's exactly, I think, while I understand the sentiment that, of course, like Greta Thunberg is kind of coming up with that, yeah, we should start now in order to get there. But I also understand the point why it's so far away. Like, some are even planning, like, 2050 is the net zero thing. 2030 is basically have it at least under control, sort of. Yes, while it is in the future that it will be completely attained, we do need to start now. Again, like you talked about our Earth Day post that we posted, there's a bunch of things that you can look up that you can actually do. Personally, if you are actually in a position of power to make the changes on a bigger scale, then there's also like community action. And if you're, let's say, a CEO listening to this, please do.
Yeah, I'm sure CEOs love our show.
Hey, we're doing a good job, I think.
Yeah, we are.
Anyway, whatever scale that you can actually cut down your emissions, I think you should.
And just to add to what you've said, something I find really annoying, and also part of the reason that, we started this podcast, is that a lot of times when people talk about climate change and slowing down emissions, they put that responsibility on consumers. And y'all, while it is good to make the best choices you can, recycle, don't waste water, don't waste heat, all that great stuff, drive a hybrid or an electric, or don't drive too much, walk when you can. The truth is that these emissions come from very few companies and come from sectors that we're all very aware of.
I understand. I agree with you. I do think that it's not actually fair to put it to the consumer. But at the end of the day, we do have to, I think we as consumers can kind of push companies to do, like, demand create supply, right?
Right. Especially nowadays with social media.
We are all guilty of consuming, of being consumers to such companies. But there's also, by the way, a lot of companies that signed this thing to President Biden to kind of like have greenhouse pollution by 2030. Like, they all made this pledge, and that actually includes big apparel companies like Levi's or H&M. And I think that's actually a great step, especially because I do think that fast fashion has put a real damper on the whole kind of waste that we've seen increase.
Oh my
and
God,
by the way,
yes. I saw this meme the other day showing how much plastic is in jeans, and I was shocked. I was like, what?
And girl, that's not even the worst of it. Do you know how much water the textile industry takes? Just like dyeing, the concept of dyeing is such a water intensive process, and most of the processes in the textile industry are very water intensive and very electricity energy intensive.
So anyway, thank you, Adwa. You made some very strong points. I just want everybody to know, so net zero means that we're not adding new emissions to the atmosphere. And basically, you put it in, you take it out, it becomes net. Like, you know what I mean? That's basically what it means. Emissions will still continue because, as Audra just pointed out, a lot of processes are energy and water intensive. But it's supposed to be balanced by then getting rid of some of what we have. Here's my thing, though, why I don't love the term net zero. It gives the false idea that if you absorb enough CO and CO2 and maybe some methane using trees and carbon capture, then we can get there. But I have news for you. One, in order to offset the carbon footprint of one average American's emissions, you have to plant 1,025 trees. One person, 1,025 trees. If you guys think that there's enough land left to plant as many trees as it would take to offset, we are all freaking insane. Like, that is not a real possibility. And I just don't like things that sound appealing but aren't doable. It's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like it. I want us to be serious. So that's another problem right there. And another thing is, like, different companies define net zero differently. So a company could say, we're going to be net zero because we're going to move to electric vehicles and we're not going to be putting out as many fumes as we were. So now we're net zero.
Which is such a sham, can I just say?
A fucking sham, my dude.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Do you want to explain why it's a sham?
Yeah, it's a real fucking sham. An example. And you guys, I know that we all hate Jeff Bezos because he's bloody rich. I don't even hate him. I don't even hate him. Like, I'm sorry, I don't hate Jeff Bezos. I like money,
that is
whatever.
absolutely hilarious, but that's true.
But I don't love him, but I don't hate him because I'm going to confess, I'm a big fan of Amazon. Have you seen those Amazon ads where, like, they're showing how they're going to be net zero by 2040 and they always have all these electric cars in them? Have you seen those?
The new one that's going on Hulu right now.
Every time I'm watching Seinfeld, those things pop up and it grates on my nerves because Amazon can get you groceries. They can get me emergency conditioner. They can get you a whole fucking bed, bro, within a day or two. And you are telling me that by buying electric vehicles, they are going to get to net zero. I'm very offended by that statement. And the reason I'm not saying that they're not trying. I'm not saying electric vehicles aren't bad. Of course, that's super important. But being that Amazon has a lot of warehouses that consume a lot of energy so that they can get us these things as fast as we need them. Because if I don't get my thing within 2 days, I guess I will die. Transportation is where most of our emissions come from. So yeah, cut your electric vehicles, but you would need more energy efficient warehouses. Hate to say it, but you would need less warehouses. And every company is beholden to their stockholders. That is the system of corporates, not even America, just corporate business in general. You want to hit the bottom line so that people who own shares in your company are making money. They're not beholden to their stakeholders. That time in the world has passed, unfortunately. I mean, I guess, or fortunately, if you have a lot of stocks and you're really rich. But that's just the truth. And I hate to say it. It looks good. How doable is it? I don't know. The reason people say 2030, though, is because a UN report warned that the world would need to cut emissions roughly in half by 2030 to avoid the 1.5 degrees Celsius raise in temperature. Remember, we talked about that in episode 4?
Yeah, and that's the clock that's in where is it? New York Times. New York Times Square.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, like Aja pointed out, it's expensive. These things are energy intensive. They're very aggressive. Well, they're energy intensive. They're water intensive. They require aggressive changes. And I do believe that incremental change has its place. But to really get there, you need to double down. And like Aja said, a bunch of companies signed that plan with Biden for the 2050. So let's talk about airlines themselves. The amount of things that airlines need to focus on to really get to net 2050 include more sustainable planes, efficient jet fuel, hybrid planes, and something y'all don't want to hear, but an increased cost of flying as well as more direct flights. So they would have to stop having as many, like when you have to stop, in the middle, make a stop at a big hub and then connect. They would need to cut those down dramatically. Like it would need to be you just go from place to place. Straight flights are not as easy to manage because you need more planes to be able to do that. You either need less people to fly or you need more planes. Considering the fact that flying has been growing for the last 10 years, it has not paused except for COVID, and that was barely a few months before we all hopped on planes again.
I mean, it's not back to the levels that they were pre-COVID. They're definitely up there. But to be fair, I will say, yeah, of course, this is literally one of the most greedy industry is the airline industry. But you know how they pledged to the sustainable aviation fuel, which honestly, I don't know if you've read more about it. It is so smart.
Because sustainable fuel is another very vague term, but what they really need is jet fuel that's very energy efficient. So they'll need less fuel to get farther.
But do you know what BP is using? Their sustainable fuel?
What are they using?
It's used cooking oil.
Oh, like biofuel?
Yeah, that's what they're doing. So what they're doing is that the reason why they say net zero and they're like, oh, this is actually going to really help, is that they're using oils like biofuel that's already out there. So like using animal livestock or, like I said, use cooking oil and use that to produce fuel. And
do you know what that reminds me of?
Our
do you remember? Yes, because we wanted to do... Because Whitlow hated when people would say biofuel because he would be like, it's not a bad idea, but it's just not something that you can put at a large scale functionally right now.
Well, Whitlow, BP is doing it. Sorry,
they're
Mr.
working
Dr.
on
Whitlow.
it is more like what they're doing. They're not using it everywhere that they have transportation yet.
Yeah, and their goal is to have 2 billion gallons by 2030 in use. And let's be real, I think that's what they mean by net zero. But I mean, my point is, they are actually they're going a step further, which is taking other kind of waste from the world and using that to fuel planes, which I think is a great goal if they can achieve it.
I think United Airlines is actually working. So that Boeing, I forget what number, but the last one that was made is actually considered a more energy efficient airplane. And I think United is working on using some more energy efficient fuels in those type of airplanes. But we'll see, because the whole thing is it's expensive to do, and now they need to figure out creative ways to cover those expenses by passing it on to you. Because I'm telling you right now, these companies are not about to take losses because they promised us these cuts. That's why they need so much time, to be honest with you. That's why they need so much time. And the companies that annoy me, the ones that are we are committed to deforestation to reach net zero. Because I just told you, that tree thing, we should plant trees. But any company saying that they're going to do it by just planting trees, they're liars, and it's a sham.
Kind of referencing back to one of our earlier conversations, that why I think developed countries have more of a responsibility is the same way that I think privileged people have more of a responsibility to be more sustainable than it is for a poor person. Because
yep. And the IPCC was saying that in total, we only have 500 million hectares of land left to dedicate to new forests for carbon capture. So which is not enough, not nearly enough. Royal Dutch Shell, according to the Greenpeace, has proposed planting a tenth of that amount to achieve its net zero targets. I have so much problems with Royal Dutch Shell. In fact, they're getting sued right now they're part of the companies getting sued by right now, them and Exxon, by people in the state of New York who said that they lied about being more environmentally friendly. Carbon capture technology is developing, but if you're just saying like trees and stuff, come on. Shell? Are you kidding me? Shell? They're everywhere. Deforestation in 50 million hectares is not enough. Deforestation is not enough to cut how much Shell puts out into the world. So really, that's the general gist of it. If they want to turn that ship around, they're going to have to do something to really drive the technologies. That's why they need time, you guys. Shit is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining us on another Extra Policy episode. Like I said, we're still on break, but we will be releasing these mini-sodes. So please join us every week. They'll be out every Monday, our usual time in the morning on Mondays. And we look forward to getting back to you guys with full episodes come June 7th. But until next week, stay awesome and keep learning, pals.